The first nail I ever hammered into that house was crooked. I should have seen it as an omen. My name is Taylor, and I spent 10 years building the perfect life with a man who turned out to be perfectly wrong for me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the day it all came crashing down. Literally, as it would turn out. We need to talk. 4 words that can gut you faster than a rusty blade. Corbin said them while standing in our kitchen, the one with the custom backsplash I'd designed and installed myself. His hands were shoved deep in his pockets, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. I was stirring pasta sauce, something I'd done 1,000 times before in this exact spot. The wooden spoon felt heavier than usual. "Okay," I said, not turning around. "Talk." "Not here. Living room. The living room." Our living room. With the vaulted ceiling I'd calculated the load-bearing requirements for, the built-in shelves I'd measured and cut, the fireplace I'd helped lay stone by stone. Every weekend for 3 years, we'd worked on this house together. Or so I thought. I followed him, still holding the spoon like a weapon I didn't know how to use. He sat on the edge of the couch, the expensive one his mother Helen had insisted we buy. I remained standing. "I'm leaving," he said, just like that. No preamble, no explanation, just 2 words that erased a decade. "Leaving for where?" I asked, though something cold was already spreading through my chest. "Leaving you, Taylor. I'm leaving you." The pasta sauce was still bubbling in the kitchen. I could hear it from here, a steady simmer that suddenly sounded like mockery. "There's someone else," he continued, his voice gaining confidence now that the worst part was out. "Her name is Jackie. It's been going on for a while." "How long is a while?" 6 months. 6 months. I'd been planning our 10th anniversary party for 6 months. I'd been researching vacation destinations, looking at new furniture, talking about maybe starting a family. For 6 months. "She's pregnant," he said. The wooden spoon clattered to the hardwood floor, the floor I'd helped install, board by board. "Congratulations," I heard myself say. My voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. "Taylor, Get out. This is my house, too. Then I'll get out." "Actually," he said, and something in his tone made my skin crawl. "Mom thinks it would be better if you were the one to leave. The land was always in my name. Technically, you don't have any legal claim to—" "Your mother thinks?" "She's just looking out for the family." "I am your family. Was your family. Jackie's having my baby, Taylor. That changes things." I stared at him. This man I'd loved since I was 26. This man I'd worked beside every weekend, mixing concrete and hauling lumber. This man who'd never once thanked me for the structural drawings I'd stayed up all night perfecting, or the permit applications I'd filled out because his handwriting was illegible. "When do you want me gone?" I asked. "Soon. Jackie wants to move in next week." Next week. 10 years reduced to a 7-day notice. "Fine." He looked surprised, like he'd expected me to fight, to scream or cry or beg. Instead, I bent down and picked up the wooden spoon. "I need to turn off the stove," I said. As I walked back to the kitchen, my phone rang. Helen's name flashed on the screen. "Hello, Helen." "Taylor, dear." Her voice dripped with fake sweetness. "I assume Corbin has spoken with you?" "He has." "Good. I've taken the liberty of contacting a moving company. They can be there tomorrow morning to help you pack. I thought it would be easier for everyone if we handled this quickly and quietly. Quickly and quietly. Like I was a stain to be scrubbed away." "How thoughtful of you." "I've also spoken with our attorney, just to make sure there are no complications. You understand?" I understood perfectly. Helen had been planning this conversation before I even knew Jackie existed. "Of course," I said. "No complications." "Wonderful. I'm sure you'll land on your feet, dear. You're very resourceful." The way she said resourceful made it sound like an insult. After she hung up, I stood in my kitchen, their kitchen now, and smiled for the first time all day. They had no idea what they'd just done. They had no idea what I was capable of, and they definitely had no idea what I'd built into the very bones of this house. The moving boxes arrived at 7 a.m. sharp. Helen's efficiency was almost admirable. I was already dressed and had coffee brewing when the doorbell rang. 3 burly men stood on my porch. The porch I'd designed with a slight slope for drainage that Corbin had insisted was unnecessary. "You Taylor?" the lead guy asked. "That's me." "We're here to pack you up. Mrs. Thompson said you'd be ready." Mrs. Thompson. Helen was already erasing me from the family tree. "Come on in," I said. "I'll show you what needs to go." The truth was, I didn't have much. Most of our furniture had been wedding gifts from Helen's side of the family, and she'd made it clear through Corbin that those items were family heirlooms that would be staying put. I led them upstairs to our bedroom, my former bedroom, and started pulling clothes from the closet. The movers worked with practiced efficiency, wrapping everything in tissue paper like they were packing away a life that had never really mattered. That's when I heard her voice downstairs. "Oh my God, it's even more beautiful than the photos." Jackie. She was here already, touring her new kingdom while I was still packing my exile. I walked to the top of the stairs and looked down. She was standing in the foyer, spinning in a slow circle with her arms outstretched. Her belly was just starting to show, maybe 4 months along. She was younger than I'd expected, with glossy brown hair and the kind of effortless beauty that comes from never having to work for anything. "Corbin, this is incredible," she gushed. "You built all of this yourself?"
"Well, I had some help," he said, not looking up at me. "But yeah, it was mostly my vision." His vision. I gripped the banister hard enough to leave marks. "The kitchen is gorgeous," Jackie continued, wandering toward the back of the house. "And this living room, it's like something from a magazine." "Wait until you see the master suite," Corbin said. "I designed it with a walk-in closet and—" "Excuse me." They both looked up. I was halfway down the stairs, carrying a box of my books. "Hi," Jackie said, her smile faltering slightly. "You must be Taylor." "I must be. I'm Jackie. I just wanted to say, I hope there are no hard feelings. I mean, these things happen, right? Sometimes people just grow apart." I set the box down on the bottom step and really looked at her. She was beautiful, sure, but there was something calculating in her eyes, something that reminded me of Helen. "You're right," I said. "These things do happen. I'm so glad you understand. Corbin was worried you might be difficult." "Difficult?" "You know, bitter. Some women get really nasty during divorces." Corbin shifted uncomfortably. "Jackie, maybe we should—" "No, it's fine," I said. "I'm not bitter at all. Actually, I think you two are perfect for each other." Jackie beamed. "Really? That's so sweet of you to say." "I mean it. You deserve each other." Something in my tone made Corbin frown, but Jackie was too busy admiring the crown molding to notice. "This house is just perfect," she said. "I can't wait to raise our baby here. It feels so solid, so permanent, like nothing could ever go wrong." "Nothing at all," I agreed. One of the movers came downstairs with another box. "Ma'am, we found this in the bedroom closet. It was way in the back, behind some old coats." He handed me a small wooden box I'd forgotten about. Inside were my father's old tools, the ones he'd given me when I started studying architecture. His measuring tape, his level, his favorite pencil that he'd sharpened down to a stub. "What's that?" Jackie asked. "Nothing important," I said, closing the box. "Just some old junk." But as I held it, I remembered something else, something I'd hidden away years ago, when Corbin and I were still in the planning stages of this house. "Actually," I said to the mover, "there's one more thing upstairs. In the master bedroom, there's a built-in dresser. Bottom drawer, all the way in the back. There should be a manila envelope." "What's in it?" Corbin asked. "Just some old paperwork. Tax stuff, probably. He shrugged. Whatever. Just make sure you get everything today. Jackie wants to start redecorating tomorrow.
The mover returned a few minutes later with the envelope. It was thicker than I'd remembered, stuffed with papers that would mean nothing to Corbin, but everything to the right person. That's it then, I said, taking the envelope. I think that's everything. Great, Jackie said. This is going to be such a fresh start for all of us. I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. Jackie? Yes? Just a word of advice. When you're redecorating, be careful about hanging anything too heavy on the walls, especially in the nursery. The studs aren't exactly where you'd expect them to be. She laughed. Oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. Corbin built this place like a fortress, didn't you, honey? Like a fortress, I repeated. That's one way to put it. As I walked to my car, I could hear Jackie chattering excitedly about paint colors and furniture arrangements. She had no idea she was making plans for a house built on lies. But she'd learn. They both would. I was sitting in my new studio apartment, a glorified shoebox above a coffee shop, when someone knocked on my door. It was barely furnished, a mattress on the floor, a folding table, and boxes I hadn't bothered to unpack. Taylor, it's me, Marley. I hadn't heard my sister's voice in 5 years. I opened the door to find her standing in the hallway, holding 2 cups of coffee and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. How did you find me? I asked. Helen posted about the divorce on Facebook. Very classy, by the way. She made it sound like you abandoned poor Corbin. Of course she did. Can I come in? I stepped aside. Marley walked into my pathetic little space and tried not to let her shock show on her face. Coffee? She offered, holding out one of the cups. Thanks. We sat on opposite ends of my mattress like awkward teenagers. The silence stretched between us, filled with 5 years of unfinished arguments and hurt feelings. I should have called sooner, she finally said. Should have, could have, would have. I was angry, Taylor. After Mom's funeral, when you just disappeared, I didn't disappear. I got married and moved on with my life. You cut me out completely. No calls, no visits, no wedding invitation. You made it pretty clear you thought I was selfish for not dropping everything to take care of Mom. She was dying, Taylor. And I was 26 years old, trying to build a career and a marriage. I couldn't put my entire life on hold. Marley stared into her coffee. She asked for you, at the end. The words hit me like a slap. Don't. I'm not trying to hurt you. You're just saying I'm a terrible daughter who abandoned her dying mother. I got the message 5 years ago. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She looked up at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. I meant I was scared and angry, and I needed someone to blame. It was easier to blame you than to accept that she was really gone. I set down my coffee cup. Marley, I was wrong, Taylor. I should have supported you instead of attacking you. I should have been a better sister. We both could have been better. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. So what happened with Corbin? Helen's version makes you sound like a psycho ex-wife. Helen's version is bullshit. He cheated on me for 6 months, got his girlfriend pregnant, and then kicked me out of the house I helped build. Jesus. And now they're living happily ever after in my dream home while I'm sleeping on a mattress in a studio apartment. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be useful. Marley raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I got up and pulled the manila envelope from one of my boxes. I dumped the contents onto the mattress between us. Blueprints, permit applications, inspection reports, photographs. What is all this? She asked. Evidence. She picked up one of the blueprints. Evidence of what? Corbin cut corners during construction. Big corners. Dangerous corners. I documented everything. Why? Because I knew this day would come. Maybe not exactly like this, but I knew he'd eventually show his true colors. Marley studied the papers. I don't understand half of this stuff. You don't need to, but I know someone who will. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Anton? This is Taylor Ray. Yes, from the Morrison Project 3 years ago. I'm good, thanks. Listen, I need to report some code violations. No, not my project. Someone else's anonymous tip. Yeah, I can do that. I gave him the address of my former house and hung up. Who was that? Marley asked. Building inspector. Very thorough guy. Very by the book. Taylor, what are you planning? I'm not planning anything. I'm just making sure the proper authorities are aware of some safety concerns. This is about revenge. This is about justice. What's the difference? I gathered up the papers and put them back in the envelope. Revenge is emotional. Justice is factual. And if someone gets hurt, no one's going to get hurt. Scared, maybe. Inconvenienced. Definitely. But not hurt. Marley stood up and started pacing my tiny apartment. This is crazy, Taylor. What's crazy is letting them get away with stealing my life. So you're going to destroy theirs? I'm going to let the truth destroy theirs. There's a difference. She stopped pacing and looked at me. What do you need from me? I need a lawyer. Someone discreet. I know someone. Albert. He's good, and he doesn't ask too many questions. Perfect. But Taylor, promise me something. What? Promise me this won't consume you. Promise me you won't become someone you can't live with. I looked around my pathetic little apartment, then back at my sister, the only family I had left. I promise, I said. But we both knew I was lying. Albert's office smelled like old leather and disappointment. He was exactly what I'd expected. Gray hair, expensive suit, and the kind of tired eyes that had seen too many messy divorces. Marley says you need some legal advice, he said, gesturing for me to sit. I need protection. From what? I slid a folder across his desk. I'm about to report some building code violations. I want to make sure I'm covered legally. He opened the folder and whistled low. These are serious violations. Foundation issues, electrical problems, unpermitted additions, all documented. You took these photos? During construction. My ex-husband insisted on cutting corners. I tried to talk him out of it. Albert flipped through the pictures. Do you have any written record of your objections? I pulled out my phone and showed him a series of text messages. Taylor, the inspector is going to flag the electrical work if we don't fix it. Corbin, it's fine. No one will ever know. Taylor, this isn't safe. Corbin, you worry too much. Trust me. There are dozens more like that, I said. And you're reporting this now because I don't want anyone to get hurt. Albert gave me a look that said he'd heard that line before. And it has nothing to do with your recent divorce? My motivations don't matter. The violations are real. Fair enough. He closed the folder. You're protected under whistleblower laws. As long as everything you're reporting is factual. It is. Then you're in the clear. But Taylor? Yeah? Be careful. This kind of thing has a way of spiraling. I left Albert's office and drove to an electronics store across town. I paid cash for a burner phone and activated it under a fake name. Then I sat in my car and made the call. City Building Department, this is Anton. I'd like to report some code violations. Okay, I'll need your name and I'd prefer to remain anonymous. That's fine. What's the address? I gave him Corbin's address, my old address. What kind of violations are we talking about? Anton asked. Foundation issues. The retaining wall on the east side of the property was built without proper drainage. There's also unpermitted electrical work in the basement and garage. How do you know about these issues? I was involved in the construction. As a contractor? As an architect? There was a pause. Can you be more specific about the foundation problems? The retaining wall is going to fail. Probably within the next few months, especially if we get heavy rain. When it does, it'll take part of the house with it. That's a serious allegation. It's a serious problem. I'll need to schedule an inspection. You should probably do it soon. I hung up and drove home. Marley was waiting in my apartment with Chinese takeout. How did it go with Albert? She asked. Good. I'm covered. And I made the call. She set down her chopsticks. Taylor, I've been thinking about this all day. What if you're wrong? What if the house is actually safe? It's not. But what if... Marley, I was there for every day of construction. I know exactly what corners Corbin cut and why. The foundation is compromised, the electrical work is a fire hazard, and the plumbing in the master bathroom is going to fail within a year. How can you be so sure? I pulled out my father's old notebook, the one I'd been carrying since I moved out. It was filled with his handwriting, notes about structural integrity and building codes. Dad taught me that a house is only as strong as its weakest point. He used to say that cutting corners doesn't save money, it just delays the bill. So you're collecting on Corbin's bill? I'm making sure the bill gets paid. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Inspection scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Property owner has been notified. That was fast, Marley said, reading over my shoulder. Anton's thorough. He doesn't mess around with safety issues. What happens now?
Now we wait. But we didn't have to wait long. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Corbin's name flashed on the screen. Hello, Corbin. What the hell did you do? I don't know what you mean. The city called. They're sending an inspector tomorrow. They said someone reported code violations. That's concerning. You should probably make sure everything is up to code. Taylor, I know this was you. I have no idea what you're talking about. This is harassment.
This is a safety inspection. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. I'm calling my lawyer. You do that. I hung up. Marley was staring at me. You enjoyed that, she said. A little. This is really happening. This is really happening. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Helen. We need to talk. I showed Marley the message. You going to respond? She asked. Not yet. Let her sweat. Taylor? What? Promise me you know what you're doing. I looked out my tiny window at the city lights below. Somewhere out there, Corbin and Jackie were probably panicking, trying to figure out how to explain away years of shortcuts and lies. I know exactly what I'm doing, I said. And for the first time in months, that was completely true. The inspection was scheduled for 10 a.m. I was parked across the street by 9:30. Anton arrived right on time in his white city vehicle. He was a tall, methodical man who took his job seriously, exactly the kind of person you wanted inspecting a house built on lies. Corbin met him at the front door. Even from across the street, I could see the tension in his shoulders. Mr. Thompson, I'm Anton from the building department. We spoke yesterday. Right, yes. Come in. I have to say, I'm not sure why this is necessary. The house has been fine for years. That's what we're here to determine. They disappeared inside. I settled in to wait. My phone rang. Helen. Taylor, we need to discuss this situation. What situation? Don't play dumb with me. You reported Corbin to the city. I have no idea what you're talking about. This is petty, even for you. Helen, if there are legitimate safety concerns about the house, shouldn't you want them addressed? Especially with Jackie being pregnant? There was a long pause. What do you know about safety concerns? I know Corbin cut a lot of corners during construction. You're lying. Am I? Ask him about the retaining wall. Ask him about the electrical work in the basement. Ask him about the permits he never pulled. He wouldn't. He would. And he did. I have documentation. Another pause. What do you want? I don't want anything, Helen. I just want everyone to be safe. This is about money, isn't it? You want some kind of settlement. I want justice. How much? You can't buy your way out of this one. I hung up and watched as Anton emerged from the house. He walked around to the backyard, then spent a long time examining the retaining wall. He took photos, made notes, and shook his head several times. This was going better than I'd hoped. My phone buzzed with a text from Marley. "How's it going?" "Better than expected." "Are you sure about this?" "Too late to back out now." Anton spent another hour inside the house. When he finally came out, Corbin followed him to his car. Their conversation looked heated. After Anton left, I watched Corbin pace back and forth on the front lawn, talking frantically on his phone. Then Jackie came outside. Even from across the street, I could see she was crying. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Is this Taylor Ray? Who's asking?" "This is Anton from the City Building Department. I understand you may have some information about the property at..." He rattled off Corbin's address. "I might. Could we meet? I have some questions about the construction history." I thought this was an anonymous tip. It was. But I need more details. And you seem to know this property well. When and where? There's a coffee shop on 5th Street. Brewster's. Can you meet me there in an hour? I'll be there. I drove to Brewster's and found Anton sitting in a corner booth, surrounded by paperwork. He looked up when I approached. "Taylor? That's me. Thanks for coming. Can I buy you a coffee?" "Sure." He returned with 2 cups and slid into the booth across from me. "So," he said, "tell me about this house. What do you want to know?" "Everything, starting with the foundation." I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I'd taken during construction. The retaining wall was built without proper drainage. Corbin insisted it would be fine, but I knew it wouldn't hold up long term. Anton studied the photos. These are very detailed. I documented everything. Why? Because I knew he was making mistakes that could hurt someone. And you didn't report it at the time? I was married to him. I thought I could convince him to fix things. But you couldn't. He said I was being paranoid, that I worried too much. Anton flipped through more photos. What about the electrical work? All unpermitted. The previous owner had started some renovations in the basement, but never finished them. Corbin just built around the existing work instead of bringing it up to code. And the plumbing? The master bathroom addition was never properly connected to the main sewer line. It's been backing up into the foundation for months. Anton looked up from the photos. How do you know all this? Because I'm an architect, and because I helped build that house from the ground up. But your name isn't on any of the permits. Corbin didn't want to pay the fees for having a licensed architect involved. He thought he could handle it himself. And now? Now he's about to find out what happens when you build a house on lies. Anton closed his notebook. I have to ask, is this about revenge? It's about safety. That house is going to hurt someone if these problems aren't fixed. And it has nothing to do with your recent divorce? My marriage is over, but that doesn't change the fact that the house is dangerous. Anton studied my face for a long moment. I believe you. What happens now? I issue my report. The property owner has 30 days to address the violations or face condemnation proceedings. And if he doesn't fix them, then the city steps in. I finished my coffee and stood up. Thank you for taking this seriously. Thank you for coming forward. Not everyone would. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You bitch, you're going to pay for this. I screenshotted the message and forwarded it to Albert. Then I drove home, where Marley was waiting with a bottle of wine and a worried expression. How did it go? She asked. Anton believes me. He's issuing a report. And then? Then Corbin has 30 days to fix everything. Will he? I opened the wine and poured 2 glasses. He can't afford to. The repairs would cost more than the house is worth. So what happens? The city condemns the property. Marley raised her glass. To justice? To consequences. We clinked glasses, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Taylor, what if this goes too far? It's already gone too far. The question is whether it goes far enough. The official report came out 3 days later. I didn't have to read it. I could hear the fallout from across town. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. Corbin, Helen, even Jackie called from different numbers. I let them all go to voicemail. By noon, there was a news van parked outside the house. I drove by and saw a reporter interviewing neighbors while Corbin stood on his front porch, gesturing wildly. Turn it up, I told Marley. We were watching the evening news from my couch. Serious structural violations that could pose a danger to residents, the reporter was saying. The city has issued an emergency evacuation order pending repairs that could cost upwards of $200,000. The camera cut to Corbin. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. This is harassment, plain and simple, he said. My ex-wife is trying to destroy my life because she's bitter about our divorce. Do you have any evidence of that? The reporter asked. She's an architect. She knows exactly what to say to make the city panic. But are the violations real? Corbin's jaw tightened. The house has been perfectly safe for years. That's not what the inspector's report says. The camera cut back to the reporter. The property owner has 30 days to complete the necessary repairs or face condemnation proceedings. We'll continue following this story as it develops. Marley muted the TV. He looked terrible. Good. Taylor, what? Maybe this is enough. Maybe you should let it go now. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Taylor Ray? Who's asking? This is Francisco from Demolition Solutions. I got your number from a mutual friend. I sat up straighter. Francisco was the foreman I'd worked with on the Morrison project 3 years ago. He was thorough, professional, and completely by the book. Francisco, hi. What can I do for you? I heard about a property that might need emergency demolition. Structural collapse risk? Where did you hear that? Word gets around in this business. The address you gave me, I drove by yesterday. That retaining wall is in bad shape. How bad? Bad enough that I wouldn't let my crew work near it. If that thing goes, it's taking part of the foundation with it. What would you recommend? Honestly, tear it down before it falls down. It's safer and cheaper in the long run. How long would something like that take? If we got the permits? 2 days, maybe 3. But the owner would have to request it. And if the city ordered it? Emergency demolition? We could start tomorrow. I looked at Marley, who was shaking her head frantically. Francisco, hypothetically, what would trigger an emergency demolition order? Imminent collapse risk. If an inspector determined the structure was about to fail and posed a danger to neighboring properties. How imminent is imminent? Could be anything. Heavy rain, minor earthquake, even a strong wind. That retaining wall is a ticking time bomb. Thanks for the information. Taylor, be careful with this one. I've seen what happens when these old foundations let go. It's not pretty. After I hung up, Marley grabbed my arm. You're not seriously thinking about... I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just gathering information. This is insane. Someone could get hurt. No one's going to get hurt. They've already been evacuated. What about the neighbors? What about them? Their houses could be damaged. Their houses were built to code. They'll be fine. Marley stood up and started pacing. This has gone too far, Taylor. You need to stop. I can't stop. It's out of my hands now. You could call Anton. Tell him you made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake. You could... My phone rang. Helen. What do you want, Helen? I want to make a deal. I'm listening. $50,000. Cash. You call off your inspector friend and make this go away. I can't make it go away. The report is already filed. Then fix it. Say you were wrong. I wasn't wrong. 100,000. Helen, 200,000. That's my final offer. You don't have $200,000. I'll get it. I'll mortgage my house if I have to. Why would you do that? Because that house is Corbin's future. It's Jackie's future. It's my grandchild's future. Your grandchild's future was built on lies. Everything is built on lies, Taylor. The difference is knowing when to stop digging. Maybe you should have thought of that before you kicked me out. I was protecting my family, and I'm protecting mine. What family? You don't have anyone. The words hit like a physical blow. I have Marley, one sister who ignored you for 5 years. That's your family? It's more than you'll have when this is over. I hung up and immediately called Francisco back. It's Taylor again. That property we discussed. How quickly could you get an emergency demolition permit? If the city inspector recommends it, 24 hours. And you'd be available? For you? Always. I'll be in touch. Marley was staring at me in horror. Taylor, please, don't do this. It's already done.
No, it's not. You can still walk away. Walk away to what? My studio apartment? My empty life? They took everything from me, Marley. Everything. So you're going to take everything from them? I'm going to let the truth take everything from them. What's the difference?
I looked out my window at the city lights, thinking about Corbin and Jackie huddled in some hotel room, probably fighting about whose fault this was. Thinking about Helen, frantically calling lawyers and trying to find someone to blame. The difference is that when it's over, I'll be able to sleep at night. Will you? I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure. But I was sure about one thing. It was too late to stop now. The wheels were already in motion, and tomorrow, everything would come crashing down. The rain started at midnight. By morning, it was coming down in sheets. I was drinking coffee and watching the weather report when my phone rang. Anton. Taylor, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The retaining wall at your ex-husband's property. It's starting to buckle. With this rain, we're looking at imminent collapse. How imminent? Hours, maybe less. I'm issuing an emergency demolition order. What does that mean? It means we're tearing it down today before it takes out the neighbor's garage. After he hung up, I sat in my kitchen listening to the rain pound against my windows. This was it. The moment I'd been building toward for weeks. My phone buzzed with a text from Francisco. Got the call. Crew assembles at noon. You coming to watch? Wouldn't miss it. Marley emerged from my bathroom, already dressed. Where are you going? I asked. With you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. If you're really going through with this, you shouldn't be alone. We drove through the rain in silence. The streets were flooded in places, and I had to take several detours. By the time we reached Corbin's neighborhood, there were already news vans lining the street. I parked across from the house and stared. The retaining wall was visibly sagging, water pouring over the top and pooling around the foundation. The basement windows were dark with moisture. Jesus, Marley whispered. It really is going to collapse. I told you. Francisco's crew was setting up equipment in the driveway. The demolition truck looked massive next to the house I'd once called home. There's Corbin, Marley said. He was standing on the sidewalk with Jackie and Helen, all of them soaked despite their umbrellas. Jackie was crying. Helen was on her phone, probably screaming at some lawyer. A reporter approached them with a camera crew. Mr. Thompson, how do you feel about losing your home? This is all my ex-wife's doing, Corbin said, his voice cracking. She's destroying my family out of spite. But the city inspector says the structural damage is real. The damage is real now because she made sure it would be. The reporter looked confused. What do you mean? She knew about these problems during construction. She could have fixed them then, but she didn't. She waited until she could use them as weapons. Are you saying she deliberately sabotaged your home? Helen stepped forward. That's exactly what we're saying. This woman is vindictive and dangerous. I rolled down my window to hear better. Do you have any proof of sabotage? The reporter asked. She's an architect, Helen said. She knows exactly how to make a house fail. But wouldn't that be illegal? Of course it's illegal, but proving it is another matter. Francisco walked over to them, clipboard in hand. Folks, I need you to move back. We're starting in 10 minutes. Wait, Jackie said, her voice barely audible over the rain. Can't we save anything? The baby's nursery? Our photos? Ma'am, the evacuation order was issued 3 days ago. Anything you needed should have been removed then. But we thought, I'm sorry, it's not safe to go back inside. Jackie collapsed against Corbin, sobbing. For a moment, I felt something that might have been guilt. Then I remembered Jackie spinning in my foyer, talking about fresh starts and redecorating. I remembered Helen's voice on the phone, cold and dismissive. I remembered Corbin sitting on our couch, telling me he was leaving.
The guilt faded. Francisco's crew fired up the equipment. The sound was deafening, even from across the street. Last chance to stop this, Marley said. I'm not stopping anything. I'm just watching. The first swing of the wrecking ball took out the front porch. The porch I'd designed with proper drainage that Corbin had insisted was unnecessary. The wood splintered like kindling. The crowd gasped. Someone screamed.
The second swing took out the living room wall. I could see inside now, see the built-in shelves I'd measured and cut, the fireplace I'd helped build stone by stone. Everything was getting destroyed. But it wasn't my home anymore. It hadn't been my home the moment Corbin told me to leave. The retaining wall went next, collapsing in a rush of mud and concrete. Water poured into the basement, and I could hear the electrical system shorting out. The foundation's compromised, Francisco called out. We need to take down the whole structure. More swings. More destruction. The kitchen where I'd cooked 1,000 meals. The bedroom where I'd planned our future. The bathroom where I'd gotten ready for our wedding. All of it reduced to rubble in less than an hour. When it was over, there was nothing left but a pile of broken wood, twisted metal, and shattered dreams. The news crews were interviewing anyone who would talk. The neighbors were complaining about property values. Francisco was explaining structural engineering to reporters who didn't understand half of what he was saying. And Corbin was standing in the rain, staring at the wreckage of his life. I got out of my car and walked over to the debris pile. I found a piece of the walkway I'd laid myself, a smooth river stone I'd picked out because it reminded me of my father's garden. I slipped it into my pocket. Taylor. I turned. Corbin was standing behind me, his face streaked with rain and tears. Are you happy now? He asked. I'm satisfied. You destroyed everything. No, Corbin, you destroyed everything. I just made sure everyone could see it. He stared at me for a long moment, then walked away. I got back in my car, where Marley was waiting. How do you feel? She asked. I touched the stone in my pocket, the only piece of my old life worth keeping. Free, I said. And for the first time in months, I meant it. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the demolition. I was grading papers at my kitchen table. I'd started teaching part-time architecture classes at the community college, when Marley knocked on my door. Mail, she said, holding up an envelope with Corbin's handwriting. Throw it away. You sure? It feels thick. I took the envelope and weighed it in my hands. Whatever he had to say, I didn't want to hear it. But curiosity won. Inside were 3 pages of his messy handwriting and a cashier's check for $15,000. What's the check for? Marley asked, reading over my shoulder. Guilt money. I skimmed the letter. It was full of apologies, excuses, and blame. He was sorry for cheating. He was sorry for kicking me out. But it was also my fault for not stopping him from cutting corners. My fault for documenting everything instead of fixing it. My fault for being vindictive. The last paragraph made me laugh out loud. What's so funny? He wants to meet for coffee, to work things out like adults. Are you going to? I walked to my stove and turned on the burner. What do you think?
The letter caught fire immediately. I held it over the sink and watched it burn, the words disappearing into ash. And the check? That's going to charity. My phone rang. Anton. Taylor, I wanted to give you an update. What kind of update? The investigation into the property violations. We found some interesting things in the debris. Such as?
Unpermitted electrical work that goes back years. Tax documents showing the property was never properly assessed. And evidence of insurance fraud. Insurance fraud? Your ex-husband filed claims for water damage that he caused himself by ignoring the drainage issues. The insurance company is very interested in talking to him. What does that mean? It means he's got bigger problems than a demolished house. After Anton hung up, I sat at my table and stared at the check. $15,000. It wouldn't even cover a month's rent on the house I'd helped build. You know what the worst part is? I said to Marley. What? He still doesn't get it. He thinks this was about revenge. Wasn't it? It was about consequences. There's a difference. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Jackie. Can we talk? I showed Marley the message. You going to respond?
I don't know, but I was curious. I texted back. What do you want to talk about? I need to understand what happened. You know what happened. I know Corbin's version. I want to hear yours. I looked at Marley. What do you think? I think you should hear what she has to say. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Jackie looked exhausted, her pregnancy more obvious now. She was alone. Where's Corbin? I asked. Talking to lawyers. The insurance company is suing him. I heard.
He says you planned all of this, that you sabotaged the house during construction. What do you think? She stirred her tea slowly. I think he's a liar. What makes you say that? Because I found the real construction photos on his computer. The ones showing all the problems you tried to warn him about. I leaned back in my chair. And I saw the text messages. All of them. You begged him to fix things. You offered to pay for proper permits. You told him someone could get hurt, but he didn't listen. No. He said you were being dramatic, that you just wanted to control everything. So why are you here, Jackie? She looked down at her belly. Because I need to know, was my baby ever in danger? The question hung between us like a weight. Yes, I said finally. The electrical work in what was going to be the nursery was a fire hazard. The foundation settling could have caused the floor to collapse, and the mold in the walls would have made the baby sick. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. He knew? He knew. And he was going to let us live there anyway? He was going to hope nothing bad happened. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. I'm leaving him. Good. I wanted to hate you. It would have been easier. Hate me anyway if it helps. It doesn't. She stood up. Thank you for telling me the truth. Jackie? Yeah? Get a good lawyer, and make sure the baby's paternity is documented. Corbin's going to try to run from his responsibilities. She nodded and walked away. I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, watching people hurry past the windows. Normal people with normal problems, going about their normal lives. My phone rang. Marley. Where are you? Coffee shop on Main Street. How did it go with Jackie? Better than expected. You coming home? Home. My tiny studio apartment above a coffee shop. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No lies built into the foundation. No shortcuts hidden in the walls. No one could take it away from me. Yeah, I said. I'm coming home. As I walked to my car, I pulled the river stone from my pocket, the one I'd taken from the wreckage. It was smooth and warm from being carried around for weeks. I thought about throwing it away, about leaving the past in the past. Instead, I put it back in my pocket. Some things are worth keeping, even after everything falls down. When they took my house, they thought I'd be empty. But now I am finally free. And that's worth more than any house they could ever build.